Hello and welcome back. So today I'm so excited because this video is going to be kicking off a series that I've been wanting to do, and it's partly exciting because this is something that I would love to have had on my journey, so I'm thrilled to be able to bring this out for you guys. So I wanted to talk about what various things feel like, because we grow up and we understand mostly our physical senses, and even that we don't fully understand because there's some weird stuff. Not even going to get into the soy sauce thing, but essentially we grow up with our sight, our eyeballs. And obviously I'm speaking in a general sense. I realize that there are those people who don't. So we grow up with our ears, we grow up with our hands and our skin, etc. And it's just natural for us to understand mostly how these things work. But here's the crazy thing a lot of people don't know. How do I even start talking about this? Oh my goodness. So TLDR is ESP, all the clear senses, etc. We've always had them. We just didn't know what they were or how to listen to them. So that's the short version. So long version. We've heard so many conversations over the years, and by years I mean like millennia at this point, about how some people are psychic and some people have ESP and some people are clairvoyant and some people are mediums and yada 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 yada. The thing that we don't know, but we also doubt that because it seems so foreign, so alien, so impossible. And it's certainly something that science hasn't been able to confirm. And for me, I've always been like, well, it's an extremely subjective experience. So while I think that ultimately there is potential for it to be verified, there is a road to get there. And one of the biggest roadblocks is, while people can have these gifts haven't been reliable enough to end up being proven. I and many other people know that they are real. I know this because I've experienced them. But like a yips kind of situation, when you want it to happen, when you are focusing on it and there's something riding on it, it's not going to work. It's just, at least not until it's properly trained. But before then, it's not going to work reliably. And there's also a bit of whole it really wasn't supposed to be proven yet, because there's a certain amount of discovery we have to go through as an entire race of beings before it can be just public common knowledge. But we are approaching that, and technology is approaching some crazy things. It's truly going to get wild, and I honestly am so excited. There's always some fear when you know major upheavals on the horizon, but that's not in and of itself a bad thing. Clinging to the ways of the past can make it feel like a bad thing, but I am getting way off track. ADHD. Anyway, point is, there's a lot of skepticism surrounding psychic abilities or any of the clairsenses, really anything metaphysical. And it makes sense that there's a lot of skepticism around it because it's not something that can be proven by your standard physical means. So it makes sense that people will be like, I don't buy into this. But that exact disbelief, which lies in all or most of us, is exactly why we then don't believe our own abilities when they show themselves, which they've been doing your whole life. Just FYI. Yes, you have had these abilities your whole entire life. You just didn't know because it wasn't talked about, because people discard the concepts as being something else. Humanity has essentially gaslighted itself into disbelieving in its own abilities. And this has been going on since way before any of us were born. We all grew up in this system, in this understanding that these things aren't real, quote unquote. And it's funny because at the same time we grew up with that, we also grew up with all this TV and television and even religions and fantasy and all this stuff that made us want to believe in it. And I think that actually has been a huge hindrance because we want it so bad that kind of negates our believing that we already have it in the first place. And ironically, there are all kinds of little fables about that exact thing where you want something so bad you can't even see that you already have it. The reason I am creating this series of videos is to explain, at least my experience, of what these things feel like, so that you can then notice within yourself when you experience these things. And the first one I want to talk about today is premonitions. And I don't necessarily mean big stuff. I'm not saying the fall of Rome level of premonition at all. I'm saying, and I'll give you a personal recent example of when this happened. I was going about my day, minding my own business, doing my thing, and I kept finding my mind wandering off into memories about when I was a food delivery driver. And I was like, I don't understand why I keep thinking about this. This is so strange. This just randomly keeps coming into my mind. And my mind would just flash to different scenes of times when I was a delivery driver. This isn't a normal occurrence. It just happened this one day for like an hour. This kept happening. And I was like, that's weird. And I actually noted it in my journal because I've been paying more attention to things. And I was like, whatever. And I went on with my day. And I actually forgot that it had happened. Later that day, I was on Facebook in a group for autistic people because I'm autistic. And someone was talking about that they were considering being a delivery driver. And I was like, oh. And they were a little concerned about, like, with having autism, how that would work out for them, and what to expect, kind of is what they were talking about. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have so much experience in this because I did delivery driving for multiple years, so I can jump in and tell this person my experience. And then the next day, when I opened my journal and saw what I had written about my memories continuously going back to delivery driving, I was like, oh my goodness. Later that day, I was in a conversation about it. And it struck me, suddenly, for the first time in my life, that was a premonition. Earlier in the day, I knew what was going to happen later in the day. But let me tell you, as a person who didn't know what to expect a premonition to look like, had I not randomly written that down in my journal, it never would have clicked. We have thousands of these experiences and never realize what they are. And I very much recently have come to the realization that you can experience something over and over and over. If you don't have the framework in which to understand it, you're not going to know what it is. And I remember back to times when I was a child and I just knew things and insisted upon things. And I was told it was ridiculous, that it was my imagination, and all these other things. Basically, I was continuously taught by parents and other people not to trust my own inner knowing, my own intuition, my own psychic abilities, essentially. And that happens to all of us. As children, younger than we can even remember now, we say things. We're like, hey, I see this, or I know this. But adults are like, children don't know anything. And especially if these adults also don't believe psychic abilities are even possible, a child saying something like, I don't like that lady, something's wrong there, they're going to blow it off. And I mean, thankfully, I had apparently the foresight that as a kid, if something really felt wrong to me, to blame it on something, like I figured that out. So there was an instance where there was one babysitter I was going to, and I just like, I don't even to this day know what it was, but something felt super off in that household. Like it felt wrong and it terrified me. And I mean, first of all, we need to normalize trusting our children when they're scared of something and not being like, oh, they're only scared because they're a kid and they don't understand it. We need to understand that maybe there's something we don't understand about the situation that they're picking up on. I mean, we all get weirded out when our cat stares randomly into the corner. We believe the cat might be seeing something we don't, but we don't believe our kids could be. And I know that's not everybody. Some of you do believe that, and kudos on actually trusting your children, because we need to stop looking at children like they know nothing and like they just need to suck it up, because that's how you get damaged adults. But anyway, I'm getting off course. My point is, something felt super off in that household, and after like 2 days going there and feeling this the entire time, being so uncomfortable because something was not right, the next time my mom tried to drop me off there, I flipped out. I think I was 5 or 6, and I full on meltdown, lost it. I was crying my face off and saying I didn't want to go in there, and all I could think of to tell my mom was there was molestation that I witnessed, which wasn't true, but I knew it would get me away from whatever it was that was scaring me that I couldn't seem to name. So I named something else. And that's another thing to remember too. If you're concerned about your child being dishonest at times, especially at that young of an age, consider maybe they can't quite put words to what it is they're experiencing. It's so important for us not to be so quick to judge our children or each other, and to truly try to understand these situations. Because, and I know some of y'all need to hear this, that actually doesn't just count for trusting children or other people. That counts for trusting yourself. Because there's going to be times when you go to do something or go to be in a place and you're going to feel that not right, not okay feeling, feel like something is just wrong, and you're going to distrust yourself and you're going to go do it anyway, and something bad could happen. Trust yourself too. when these feelings arise, trust them. I know we tend to be afraid of other people's opinions of us. I think that's a lot of times what really keeps us from exploring and accepting these things in ourselves. However, is it really more important that somebody else thinks you're cool than it is to be safe? Because if your intuition is screaming at you, you should trust your intuition, for sure. But I also have to speak to time and practice as well, because we can get tricked into thinking that our anxiety or our fear is our intuition. So we do have to learn the difference and start to understand what's intuition, what's fear, what's anxiety. And a lot of that is just going to be kind of practice and trusting yourself and giving yourself the benefit of the doubt and seeing how things shake out. And a great way to practice with intuition and knowing if you're feeling your intuition is to pay attention to it in situations that aren't life and death, aren't scary, aren't potentially dangerous. One of the things that I personally think is hugely valuable is to take a deck of cards with suits, or even a regular deck of cards is either going to be black or red, and try to intuit what the next card you flip is going to be. Now, there's different probabilities of how often you would get it correct by purely guessing, and I know if you're doing the red and black of cards, it would be, I think, around 50% probability, and that's not, I don't fully understand how probabilities work, so do understand there's always going to be some correct no matter what. However, what you want to look for isn't how many you're getting right or how many you're getting wrong. The point of it isn't that. It's not to prove anything. It's not to be amazing at it, because we all start at 0 level skill and have to go upwards from there. So don't feel bad if you get every single one wrong. That's perfectly okay, and especially for somebody just starting out. What you want to do, and the whole point of it, is to establish that feeling within yourself, to understand that feeling within yourself. I actually designed a deck of cards specifically for this purpose. It has, I think, 7 different suits, and it can be used for that or for divination. I haven't quite finished it yet, so I can't link it for you guys. So I'm still kind of developing how I feel about it, but the point of the deck is to try to guess what card's coming next. And I have found, more often than not, in fact, kind of an uncannily amount of times, I don't guess the card I'm flipping over in that moment, I guess the next card coming. So I'll think it's going to be an eye, and I'll flip over a cat, and I'm like, well, that's incorrect. And then I flip over an eye for the next one, and I'm thinking tree. And then the next one after that is a tree. And it doesn't happen all the time. It's not perfect or anything. But I've definitely found I seem to more often know the card coming after the one I'm touching. Who knows why? Just continuously practicing with something like that, guessing the color, guessing the suits, whatever, can over time help you, as you see, this was correct, this wasn't correct, kind of almost develop a muscle memory kind of thing of, it'll eventually start to register how you felt on the times you got it right as compared to how you felt on the times you didn't. And in that way, you can train yourself to know which feeling is actually intuition and which feeling is just guessing. And that can then help you to know when you're going to what seems like a perfectly normal situation and you get that intuition that says, whoa, don't do this, or stay away from that person, or don't get in that car, or take a different road, or whatever. If you train yourself to know what your intuition feels like, you'll know when that is intuition and not just random panic or fear for no apparent reason. I'm sure there's a reason for all of it, but it's not just in the immediate moment when it happens. The main takeaways that I want you to have gotten from this somewhat wordy video is pay attention to where your mind randomly wanders off to, and even make notes if you're able in the moment. I like to have a notes app on my phone that I can jot things down, was randomly thinking about Bob today for some reason, wonder what that's all about. And then if it amounts to nothing, it amounts to nothing. If it amounts to something, you have some information. And I think the more and more that you practice this, the more you'll come to understand when you are touching the future and making these connections between future and past, because that's a very powerful way for you to start to integrate the concept that time is not linear and it's kind of all happening at once. It's only our perception that says it's not. So we are aware of everything else happening at all times. And I think these little hints pop up for us so much more often than we've ever realized. And you're not going to catch all of them, but when you do catch them, it can be pretty powerful and kind of fun, honestly. And the other thing is, try to find a way to train your intuition, because the more you work with it, the more you'll know what it feels like, and you'll kind of develop a muscle memory or a rapport even. You'll develop your skills with it, I guess is the best way to put it, and your understanding will become clearer. Please subscribe if you're interested in more videos like this where I talk about what different esoteric senses feel like or experiences feel like, so that way you can begin to understand what experiences you're actually having that you may not have been aware of, because until you know, you don't know what to look for. So stay tuned. There will be more of these videos coming, and I look forward to seeing you next time. I love you all. Thanks for watching.